Just struck me when you were talking about your teammates, both the ones that were here when you came and then those that came after, and obviously Tiger being the most notable, but there's a number of really impressive people. What do you think attracted them to Stanford? Or do you have a sense, was it purely the golf, or they also ended up being attracted by the institution?
I think that what happens is Stanford starts on every list. I think that most kids are intrigued by the place where Tiger Woods went to school, the place where Tom Watson went to school. And so I think that alone gets your foot in the door. And then the job becomes showing them, how great Stanford is if you take golf out of the equation. So, I tell people a lot that I think that Stanford is measured not by its facilities or the good weather or the golf course, but by the people that you find here. And I really, really believe in that. And I think that the people that end up here really see that in a quick microcosm when they visit on a recruiting trip or they decide to come here and play. So I think that, you talk about some of our greats like Tiger and Noda and even Tom Watson and Mr. Tatum and Mr. Spaeth. I mean, all these guys, I think you talk to them and there's a pretty common thread there when they talk about the people that they met here, the life experience that they gained, and how special that was to them. And I think that, the adage is really true, and maybe, this is going down kind of the same thing that we talk to our recruits about, but it's a 50, 60-year decision, not a 4-year decision. And so it's neat to really try and explain that to a kid. And I think that what we find out pretty quickly too, and I see, is that the people that really kind of get it and really will do well at Stanford and will flourish at Stanford are the people that understand that message. The kids that don't, maybe that Stanford isn't the best fit for them because it's a big commitment as far as the academics go and as far as all the other things that are layered on top of not just the golf experience. So, but to answer your question directly, I think for sure, I think that the best players that we've had are smart enough to know that there's a lot more in life than just golf. And even Tiger Woods, I think he credits what he learned at Stanford and what he learned about himself while he was here as a major part of his success now as the best in the world.
I'm interested both in your philosophy, how you coach the kids, and also your experience when Wally Goodwin was your coach.
I find things every day that we do as a team, or hot points that come up in my mind, or issues that I want to cover with my guys that Coach Goodwin probably addressed in some fashion while I was a player here. I think that there's a pretty common thread, I think, amongst what I call kind of quality golf coaches out there, and it might not be just at Stanford, but some of the things that really guide me are just the idea of, I think you can't replace work ethic, you can't replace being driven to succeed, so those two things are things that are probably hard to teach. So that's what I really look for when I recruit kids. I like physical upside, but then once they get here, to me, paying attention to the details is really important. And I think that one of the things that has driven me as a player, as a coach here, that I maybe learned as a player, not just in college, but as a professional, is that you have to really play and prepare to compete, not play and prepare to just do it the right way or to practice. So I see a lot of people and a lot of teams. They get really good at hitting 5-irons on the driving range, but then when it's time to kind of take it to the course, the result isn't what they're looking for. So everything that we do, whether it's working out, whether it's practicing, whether it's playing, it's all geared towards competition. And how can we maximize what we do in competition? And maybe that's very very poignant, kind of one shot. Here, get into the situation, go through your pre-shot routine, treat it like you're on the golf course type of practice, or maybe it's workouts that are specifically tailored to certain positions that you need to get to in the golf swing. Maybe it's the fine nuance of understanding how to really effectively use your yardage book in competition. All those different things are things that we really talk a lot about. And what's interesting too is that I find that for us, a lot less time is spent on the actual playing of the game than it is compared to the preparation and the efforts to kind of get ready to hit the shots. All the stuff that you can control. I guess that's maybe what I'm moving towards, is that there's a lot of things in golf that you can control, and there's a lot of things you can't. So we try and focus on the things you can, And Coach Goodwin my coach talked a lot about that. He wasn't really so worried about how it looked or how fancy your equipment was, or if you had the best gear. He just wanted to know that a kid was willing to work hard, and he was going to try and shoot the lowest score he could, and whatever that meant, then he was all for it. So that's what we've tried to do.
In this day and age, when so many people have swing coaches and things like that, even at the collegiate level, are you actually working with them on those kind of individual things?
Yeah, I think that it depends on the kid. I think that we often talk about it amongst our team as the Goldilocks theory. For some people, the porridge is too hot. For some people, it's too cold. And so, you really have to find your right recipe. And for some guys, I would consider myself their swing coach. For others, I'm a second set of eyes between maybe Butch Harmon or Jim McClain and the student. For other people, maybe I'm just more of a let's talk about life type of person.
Did Wally Goodwin, Coach Goodwin, sort of perform that function for you? He might have been your swing coach, but maybe not Tigers, sort of.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what Coach Goodwin was really good at, and I think that that's maybe the mark of any great collegiate coach in any sport, is just understanding each kid and their fine nuances and figuring out what motivates them, what doesn't, how to best get help them. Maybe like you said, maybe that's being their swing coach and being the mechanical guy that they turn to for as a resource for their golf swing. Maybe it's being a guy that they can just call up and say, Coach, let's have lunch and talk about life. And I think that that kind of understanding is important, and I've tried to really hold that to myself too when I work with my guys and we talk about our success of our teams. Something that will work for Rob Gruby might not work for Shiwan Kim, or they might be thinking totally different things. I think the biggest thing though is that the theme to all of it has to be kind of a common goal, and that's to win and perform and be the best you can be, whether that's on the golf course or off the golf course. And if all the guys are on that page, then I think I've done my job. Now, some guys aren't sometimes, so I think that a good coach recognizes when they're not, and is pretty good at getting them back on page and figuring out, okay, what's the mission here, how are we going to get it, and how can I help facilitate that. So,
is the golf course itself an attraction to students? Is it having one right on campus and one that they know they can utilize?
I think so. I really do. I think that to have a course of the stature that we do, I think that, is by far and away a huge recruiting tool. I'm a bit of architectural buff too. I mean, having a George C. Thomas design, authentic design, old school kind of right in front of you type of golf course is something special too. I think the location of our golf course relative to the rest of campus sets it aside from a large majority of university courses and facilities. So it's a huge draw, and to know that you can, as a team member at Stanford, you have the ability to, if you want to go play this golf course every day for 4 years is a pretty neat advertisement, I would say. And so we play it a lot. We play the Stanford golf course a lot. It stands up to the test of time. I mean, we've been hosting the U.S. Intercollegiate for nearly 40 years, and I've been here just 4 short years, but I think in my 4 years we've only had a handful of players break par after 54 holes or 72 holes towards the championship, because you can grow some rough and get to greens fast, and it's really one of the classic tests of golf that you'll find in the whole West Coast, I think. So it's a neat spot.
Where else does the team practice? What other courses are you able to utilize in the area?
We're lucky. We have great relationships with a lot of the local clubs. We play at San Francisco Club quite regularly. We play, Lake Merced. We play Olympic occasionally, and then just in our local area, close by, Sharon Heights, Menlo, Los Altos Country Club. I love those places because they're usually, A, in really good shape, and B, they're quite a bit of different type of golf course than Stanford is. Stanford is a ball striker's course. At those other places, you still have to strike it, but you have to hit it straight and putt and chip really well. And so I like using Stanford and those courses as kind of a complement to each other, depending on where we're going to play that week or the upcoming week, or what we need to work on. Because I think that it's funny because we can qualify at Stanford, to see who our top 5 are weeks and weeks on end, and the top 5 will probably kind of come out on a regular basis. But if you move that qualifier to say to Sharon Heights, a whole different crew of people is going to establish themselves. So I enjoy mixing and matching that combination, and I think it's it's a huge thing for our program to be able to play some of those elite top level courses on a regular basis too.